ChatGPT just dropped study mode, and I'm going to use it to prepare for a technical interview as a software engineer. So let's put this thing to a test and try and work through a LeetCode problem, but use ChatGPT study to help us. I'm currently preparing for a technical interview, and what happens with me sometimes is I get stuck trying to figure out the logic. I've been working with prompts to try and help learn these algorithms, but if I don't talk correctly, then ChatGPT ends up just giving me the answer. So we're going to try this out and see how it works. So we have our LeetCode problem. We'll do two sum, which is pretty classic. We'll enable study and learn mode, and we'll work through this. I'm trying to prepare for a software engineering interview. Let's work through this problem in a brute force way to properly think through the problem. Here is the problem I am working on. Okay, so we have a couple steps. It says understand the goal. We're given an array of integers, nums, an integer target, and we need to find two indices, I and j, such that nums I plus nums j equals target. We cannot use the same element twice, but we can return the indices in any order. Okay? Now let's talk brute force. Let's try to write out in plain English how a brute force approach would work. What would be your first step? Let's pretend the input is nums, 2, 7, 11, and 15, and you have a target of 9. How would you check every pair of numbers in this list to see if any one of them add to 9? Tell me what you tried first, and I'll guide you from there. So I've been working on this problem. I know what I need to do here, so I'm just going to answer honestly. I would loop through our numbers list, then define the complement. The complement would be the value where the current number, where the target minus current number equals a value we are seeking. From there, we would create an additional loop to find the complement value. If it exists, then let's return the indices. Ooh, this is pretty cool. So it gives us a brute force plan, which is just what I said. So we have in our outer loop, we'll go through each number I. In our inner loop, we'll go through every other number after j. And for each pair, check if nums I plus nums j equals target. If so, return I of j. That version avoids having to manually compute the complement and look for it. Instead, you just try every pair. Okay, so looks like it actually got rid of the complement. For a true brute force. Now it's saying, would you like to try writing the actual code next or walk through this logic with a dry run using sample input like 2, 7, 11, 15 with a target of 9? Dry debugging is a skill I've actually been trying to work through, and I think this would be super valuable to be able to walk through this together. So let's do a dry run. Okay, so a dry run when it comes to these algorithms is basically taking your input and checking your values at each point of your code. If we go back to this code, for I from 0 to length nums minus 1, what this is saying is I is 0. The first indice of this numbers array is 0, and the value is 2. Okay, so nums I equals 2. In our inner loop, j equals I. In our inner loop, this example is actually, with this given input, our example becomes pretty simple here because the next value in our loop is 1. We do not include I, so we do I plus 1. That's how we get the 1 value. And then that leads to a value of 7. As we see here, if nums I plus nums j equals target, we can actually return these indices. So this is really cool, but let's try a dry run where this isn't so straightforward. Okay, so this is really, really, really cool. So in this case, on the first pass, literally with index 0 and index 1, we're able to return the target. Okay, that's not going to be like that all the time. And so what I asked ChatGPT to do is give me an input that isn't so straightforward. So if we have a target of 12, we would have to get 3 and 9. Okay, but this is going to take an iteration or two to get there. So now we can look at this and we can say at I equals 1, nums I equals 1. So in our inner loop, we would have j1, which equals 3, 1 plus 3 equals 4, 1 plus 5 equals 6, 1 plus 7 equals 8, 1 plus 9 equals 10. There's no match for this value, this one value, in this array to get 12. If this were to work, we'd have to get 1 and 11. Okay, now let's take a look at I equals 1. Again, the first index, or the 1 index, is actually the second value in this list. And so if we look at this, we can say, okay, 3 plus 9 is going to give us our answer. But how does our algorithm actually do this? And so we can do I equals 1, nums of I, so where the 1th index equals 3. Now we go through our loop. And on our inner loop, we go, okay, so we don't have 3 here. We're just looping over 5, 7, and 9. And does 3 plus 5 equal 9 or equal 12? No. Does 3 plus 7 equal 12? No. But 3 plus 9 equals 12. So now we've just walked through all of the logic for twosome, and without giving us the answer, I mean, it kind of did give us the answer here, but I think the really cool part of this is talking about our approach. Like, if I had a problem I didn't know, or maybe I wasn't as familiar with, I could give them my problem and then see what they think. And maybe this is how you can work on your debugging skills in general, is just like, okay, here's what I think is going to happen. And maybe ChatGPT would give you a opportunity to, guide you, give you subtle guidance on how to do this. But what I really like about this is, would you like to try writing the actual code next, or walk through this logic with a dry run using sample input? If you're new to LeetCode, you might not know what a dry run is, and this concept might be familiar. Like, because ChatGPT is suggesting to do a dry run, even if you don't know what it is, you can go through it and walk through it and be like, oh, we're just like checking the values at each point in our loop. So this is really, really powerful. The next thing that I'd like to try is the study and learn plan, but I'm going to say I've been working on understanding time complexity in relation to computer algorithms and data structure. Can you give me a test to see where I am in this knowledge? I'll ask you, okay, let's do a targeted diagnostic. I'll mix in questions that test both your intuition and your precision across basic definitions, common algorithm runtimes, trade-offs in data structures, and real-world scenario reasoning. I'll ask you one question at a time, and you can answer in your own words or pick from the options if provided. I'll tailor the next question based on how you respond. Sound good? Okay, so our first question is, what does it mean when an algorithm runs in O of n time? And we actually are getting a multiple choice, which is really cool here. So A, it takes the same amount of time no matter the input size. The runtime grows exponentially as the input grows. The runtime grows proportionally with the input size, or the algorithm has a constant time loop. This answer is C. So I'm going to say C, high confidence. Let's ramp it up a notch. Okay, you have this loop. For I in range n, for j in range n, print I of j. What is the time complexity of this code and why? Don't worry about being perfect. I want to hear how you think about it. So this is a nested loop, and we're iterating over the range n twice. This is a bit of a trick question here. I'm like actually really embarrassed to answer this and have it be wrong, but this is learning and growth. So I'm going to say O of n squared because we iterate through our input n twice. Let's go. Okay, I was actually really embarrassed that I was going to get that wrong. Okay, here's a twist to test your deeper understanding. Now look at this version. What's the time complexity here? And can you explain why it's not O of n squared? Okay, so when we think about time complexity, what we're thinking about is how many times do you have to iterate over your input value? In this case, we have an input of n, okay? So where in this problem, we have 4i in range n, and we have 4j in range n. When we run this piece of the algorithm, we're actually operating at O of n time. Now, we run this again because we have a different indice value. This is O of n as well. So O of n times O of n equals O of n squared. Now, when we look at this version, we have 4i in range n, we have 4j in range 10. What's important to note here is that we are only iterating over this n input n times. No matter how large n is, this algorithm, this part of the algorithm, will run n times. Where this loop is different is that no matter how large n is, we're only going to run this 10 times. In time complexity, this would be O of 10, but you actually reduce to make this O of 1. So I'll try and send this back to ChatGPT and say O of n complexity, because we iterate over our n input value n times, but in the second loop, no matter how large n is, we only iterate 10 times. We have a complexity of O of n. Okay, now you're given a function that reverses a list. What's the time complexity of this function, and just as important, why? What's the time complexity of this function, and just as important, why? This is, I want to say O of n, and the reason why I say that is because we have an input of nums, and then we only iterate over that. We're going to iterate over that character for however many characters are in nums. I don't feel very confident about this. Let's go. Okay, let's test some real-world reasoning right now. Imagine you're building a feature to check if a list has any duplicates. Here are two approaches. 1, brute forced. 2, set-based. Loop once, storing each element in a set and checking if it already exists. Which is faster in big O terms, and why? Bonus, what are the time complexities of each? So if we use brute force, this would be, I'm actually going to draw this out because I think it'll be helpful for anyone following along. Shout out Theo, shout out Excalidraw. Okay, imagine you're building a feature to check if a list has any duplicates. So let's say we have a list. Let's say we have a list like this. 1, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 9. Okay? It's not exactly what I meant, but that works. So if we have the nested loop, we're going to want to iterate over this list and see if there's any duplicates. If we use nested lists, we'll have to do, this will be O of n squared. But if we were to do a set or maybe even a map based, we could have the key be 1 and then have the occurrences as the value. We would have something like this. Okay, so in Python, we can initialize this counter very easily. We can literally just say counter equals counter equals counter. This is a class from some import. I can't even think of it. But this will do this for us. If we just give it this and put in nums, we'll get this out. Okay? And this will easily give us duplicates. Our brute force approach, we have to do, if we use nested loops, that means that we're going to have to iterate over this nums value twice. So no matter what, this is going to be it's going to have a time complexity of O of n squared. However, if we loop once, storing each element in a set and checking if it already exists, once storing each element in a set. So we'd have to build, we can't use this. But the key part here is loop once, okay? So we will loop over nums times, storing each element in a set and checking if it already exists. So let's go back to this. Number 1, brute force. Which is faster in big O terms and why? Set-based is faster. This algorithm would run at O of n versus the brute force of O of n squared. And I think that I'm good with this. You know, if there was something that I was learning, maybe I would take a little bit more time. But what I want to talk about here is how powerful these tools are. Okay? When you're able to work through these problems, it actually can kind of make learning this content into a game. Okay? Time complexity, big O analysis, data structures and algorithms is not fun to learn. And there's a bunch of things that you can do today to avoid learning them. You can cheat. You can use Cluely, you can use whatever you want, and you don't have to learn. I am preparing for technical interviews, I'm choosing to go the harder route of doing this myself, or at least like trying to learn, where I could maybe use some sort of software and cheat the process. But if you're a college student out there, and you're working through data structures and algorithms, you're trying to land your first internship, your first job, look at how much more like fun is a stretch. Fun is a stretch. I completely get it. But think about if you had to learn this completely on your own. You'd have to come up with a plan. With this study mode, you can get away from cheating per se. So if you were to go through TwoSum again and you were working through it and you're asking ChatGPT questions, like there's no guardrails for it to just give you an answer. Whereas with this study mode, now you can really take a few steps back and just have it probe you for questions. And you just figure out, okay, does this work? Does this not? Here's what I'm thinking. Okay, so like the important parts are now on you to learn, but also ChatGPT kind of gives you a plan to learn them. I think what I'm getting at here is AI is making it so much easier. I don't know is the right word. AI is giving people opportunities to learn things that maybe they couldn't learn before. Study Plan, I believe, is available for free, for Plus, for Pro members. And so if you're in an area where you don't have maybe the resources you need for school, whether that's university, elementary school, high school, whatever, now you have access to a tutor. And not only a tutor that you have to like manage and say, don't give me the answer, don't just tell me it. Now it's a tutor that you can probe for questions. You can learn at your pace. And I'm really bullish on this. I think ChatGPT kind of just blew up a bunch of like tutor startups, but I think that's a good thing. Like I think people now have access to more opportunities to learn. Now it's really on you. How are you going to take advantage of really awesome software like this to be who you want to be, learn the way that you want to learn? I'm sure that the examples that I went through today, pretty basic, okay? I'm sure that this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what you can actually do, but I'm really bullish on this. I'm really excited that OpenAI has made this available for people. And like, if you are out there and you are trying to learn anything, like you might as well just start here and work through a plan with ChatGPT or work through studying or whatever. I'm really excited about this. Like, I'm going to continue using this to prepare for interviews. It felt really good to get all my answers right in front of the camera here. But yeah, if anyone else tries this out, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Let's keep building.